All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to gavel us in. Good evening. This is the initial meeting of the Town of East Lyme Fair Rent Commission, regular meeting of December 10th, 2024 at 5 o'clock. We're in the East Lyme Hall, the Town Hall Upper Meeting Room, and it's also on Zoom. So if we could rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank everyone that's been involved from the very beginning here, the inception of the idea to have a fair rent commission in East Lyme. Putting it all together. I want to thank staff here at East Lyme. I want to thank Stacy and Sandy for their help. And I want to thank all, and I want to thank Council, Tracy Collins, and Wallace Smith and Palmer for helping us. And I want to thank everyone that's agreed to be a commission member tonight. It wouldn't happen unless we had volunteers from town that are willing to take on what can really be it might be taxing, might be difficult at times, but certainly worthwhile, and another, I think, great addition to town government in East Lyme, which provides another avenue for individuals that might feel disadvantaged on how they're, how they have to pay rent and their relationship with their landlord. So this is a great thing, and I appreciate everyone's effort here tonight. The next step here is the election of a chair and a vice chair. So I'm going to ask from the floor, are there any nominations for a chairperson for the East Lyme Fair Rent Commission? Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Steve Carpentier.
Thank you. So we have a nomination for Steve Carpentier to be the chairperson. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Okay. All right. Any discussion? Any other nominations from the floor for chair? Any other nominations from the floor? I hear none. So having heard none, all those in favor of Steve Carpentier being the chairperson of the Fair Rent Commission signify by saying aye. Aye. And show of hands. Okay. Are there any opposed? I don't see any opposed. So congratulations, Steve, and thank you for agreeing to serve as a chairperson. We also need a vice chair. Do I hear any nominations from the floor for vice chair of the Fair Rent Commission? Steve? Deanna Horgan? You're nominating Deanna Horgan. Okay.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Isn't that the truth? Do I hear a second? Any seconds?
I'll second.
All right. We have a second. All right. Any other nominations from the floor for vice chair? Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of Deanna Horgan being the vice chair of the Fair Rent Commission signify by saying aye. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Deanna. I appreciate you agreeing to serve. I'm going to relinquish my chair, and Steve, and if the board wants to come up here.
Where I usually sit.
Does everyone have an agenda?
No, that's perfectly fine.
You do? You do.
Do you need some help?
Hold on.
Stacy has a package for everybody.
I have
To take my notebook.
I have just the
Want me to go get it
documents.
for you? Tracy, I'm gonna need the copies.
See how this goes.
Nancy,
Fred,
nice to meet you.
Mike, Dan Horgan. Good to meet you, Mike.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Collins. I'm the town attorney. My predecessor, Edward O'Connell, who I believe many of you know, is giving you the presentation tonight. I just called my office and found that he has been delayed. I apologize. But I do know he's close to being here. So I think rather than start and answer any questions that you may have, he has a presentation prepared. If you don't mind, we'll just give him a moment to arrive. And again, I apologize, but he is almost here.
That's fine. Okay with that?
Anyone seated an alternate?
An alternate.
We have to,
Mike's an alternate.
yes.
Okay, so you need to switch out with Alicia.
Okay.
If she's not here, then.
That's fine.
I'm an alternate also.
Oh, you're also an alternate.
Yes.
Doesn't matter, I'll step down.
I don't know what to do with that. Is there someone else?
Are we supposed to have how many alternates, two?
Yeah, we still haven't appointed another landlord, alternate.
I see you stay for right now, just for the sake of.
Thanks, all.
Alicia can- We'll get this thing all figured out.
And there's a commissioner missing.
Right, commissioner missing, but hope you have everybody. I think, right?
Hey.
So, who's when?
Yeah.
You're an alternate.
Yes.
And so I think you have to, because we have the five, 1, 2, 3. So you should set up in the audience
Okay.
as an alternate. Yeah. So we have to find five main members. All right.
I got my exercise for the night.
That's always good.
Steve, I'm just going to suggestion that in the interest of time, maybe we could move to item 5, set the calendar of meetings,
That's fine.
and then when that's done, I get maybe town attorney will be here.
All right, I guess at this time, we'll set the calendar of meetings. Everybody prepared for that?
Sure. What's the consensus, once a month?
I don't know, I guess we have to discuss it.
I
Is there a plan, is there a,
think that's a reasonable suggestion. I don't know how many complaints we're going to get. So can we set once a month and then draw back? There is a question, I was looking on the town website about filing a complaint, and this has a bearing. There's a Fair Rent Commission facilitator. Who might that be? Okay. All right. And on page 3, it says, once the hearing has been concluded subsequently, the commission sets a time to review, discuss, and consider the complaint, and so forth and so on, as presented during the hearing. Now, is that, under the Freedom of Information Act, I mean, that's not an offline meeting, that's another meeting that's called to address those points? Okay. Okay. So if it's a monthly basis, we have a complaint 1 month and have a hearing. The second month, we can discuss that matter for further.
Yes, we have those.
Okay. I agree with you.
And if I may add, if you have a meeting, your regularly scheduled meeting, and you find that you're so inundated with items that need to be discussed or have the public hearing on, you can schedule those as long as we comply with the Freedom of Information Act, that you post the notice of the scheduled hearing by the required timelines.
Right. Okay.
So you may have, you'll find you have more work in the beginning and less as time goes on. And so I suggest you have a regularly scheduled meeting, and then you can schedule meetings in between if you find you're getting overwhelmed with these hearings.
Understand. Thank you.
So is that what the commission would like, once a month?
You agree?
Agree? Fine.
Agree?
Can we set on, can we also set a time where it's a little more
What we need
flexible for everyone who may have to come from work, like
Of
myself?
course. Well, 5 o'clock's too early then, isn't it?
Yeah, if I could do maybe 6,
6 or 7, doesn't matter.
I can do
Whatever
6,
the board-
whatever is feasible for
Whatever's good
everybody
for the
else.
board. 6, 7, is that better?
Yep, either one.
Let's try 6.
I
Six?
Either way.
think 6 is
6
good.
is good?
Okay.
6 o'clock?
On what day?
Well, that's the other issue. We gotta figure out what's a day that we can have ability to get a room.
Sandy, is there a way to know what the time the room is available?
Yeah, I would need to be sitting in there, but I know for a fact this room is open the 4th Wednesday of the month.
4th Wednesday?
4th Wednesday, I don't know if that works.
That works.
Otherwise, I can go take a quick look at that monthly schedule.
No, actually, that's good because, well, I have, my meetings are on Monday, if I have them, so that would be out. And then Tuesday, don't you have, Tuesday's what,
Fourth Wednesday?
Fourth Wednesday.
planning, then you, so the fourth Wednesday, if that's open every-
Yes.
4th Wednesday would work.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
Board
First-
of Selectmen is the 1st and 3rd, and Board of Finance is the 2nd.
So the 4th Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
That would be January 22nd.
January 22nd is the Board of Selectmen meeting because the 1st is a holiday.
That's right, so January is the only month that's not gonna happen, we have to push back for January.
Okay.
So January, you could pick,
The 29th is Wednesday.
29th is
29th.
actually the last Wednesday.
And then we'll go
Okay.
back to the 4th,
Not the 4th, the 5th.
The 5th Wednesday of that month. Okay.
29th of January,
So.
at
that's
6
the only
o'clock.
time that's gonna happen, okay?
Oh, January
That's the
29th?
29th, Sandy?
Yes.
Yeah,
6 o'clock.
okay.
Thank you, Jason.
Tracy, the rookie's here.
There he is.
The rookie.
Now, if I'm gonna be late on Wednesdays, I watch the grandkids in Old Saybrook. I normally back up here by 5:30, but
That's
just
okay.
in case,
Pulling off
I would
when you can
just-
sit, but,
let somebody know.
yeah, just let someone know. Well, I'm sure we have to exchange phone numbers, we'll have to get everybody's information so that we can,
Could start
Stay in
an
contact.
email chain.
yeah,
Okay.
so that everybody knows what they're doing. If somebody has an issue, they can't come, they let us know and we can get an alternate.
Okay.
Perfect timing. We're good.
Grab some email down.
send a roster to everyone?
Yeah.
Great.
You must be a lawyer.
No. Vice Chair.
That's right. Yeah, thank you, by the way. We'll make it work.
You've seen all this, the commercial, residential, you know, so you got more of a
Attorney for many
approach to
years.
a lot of these
The
issues.
official town attorney is.
Because you've had it all, residential, commercial, you
Yeah,
know.
I've been a landlord for
And
30
you're
years.
Exactly.
highlighting, so I'm gonna give you a highlight pen.
Thank you.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
How are you?
I have highlight pens, because you're going over things
Thank
you
you.
have in your packages. And of course, Stacy has one. And what we're going on over tonight, for the first time, we haven't seen anything before, are drafts. So that you can look at them and look them over and familiarize yourselves with them. And with regard to the ordinance and statutes, they've been adopted before, but with regard to our notices that the commission has and the correspondence, and the notices that we'll be giving to the tenants and items such as that, that's what we'll adopt probably tonight, and that's not necessarily tonight, but in the future. They're drafts right now. With regard to the schedule, you probably have adopted something, but in the usual course, a Fair Rent Commission meets only when a complaint is filed. Someone is bothered by the landlord, or the landlord is bothered by the tenant. Here, we'll probably have to get a few minutes going, to get a few meetings going, to get our feet under us, to make sure we're satisfied with all our forms and satisfied with how our procedures work. But after we get going, we'll only probably meet when there's a complaint filed and we have to handle it. And there's one thing I think we have to remember. I think there's probably some talk about websites going on and various things that are being promulgated on behalf of our Fair Rent Commission. But I think we have to keep track of the fact that this Fair Rent Commission hasn't done anything officially. This is the very first meeting of the commission, and there's been nothing promulgated by the commission as far as I know, because this is the very first meeting. So if there's any website out there that purports to be adopted by this Fair Rent Commission, I think we have to make sure that the documents prepared by the commission and put on public media or any other type of forum are adopted by this commission and only this commission, so that we make sure we have control of what the documents say on our behalf. After this introduction, I think we should be going through what you have up there in your packets. I think Stacy has put together the relevant statutes that you have there, and they start with I think it's 148A, and they go through 148. What number, Stacy?
148B through F, I believe.
I don't have my packet, that's what it, oh, you have it, there you are, Tracy. You snuck them on. You took my package.
They're the same.
Huh?
They're the same. The one that she gave you.
They're the same?
Yep, it's the
Oh,
same.
okay. And, they're in order, and, we are already created, and 148B, as you see they're started there, we're already created, and we, have, our powers as set forth. And 148C tells us that we have 13 considerations in determining whether a rental charge is excessive, and it's worthwhile to go through them. We start with number 1. The rents charged for the same number of rooms in other housing accommodations in the same and in other areas of the municipality. The sanitary conditions existing in the housing accommodations in question. The number of bathtubs or showers, flush water closets, kitchen sinks, and lavatory basins available to the occupants. The services, furniture, furnishings, and equipment supplied. The size and number of bedrooms contained therein. The repairs necessary to make the accommodations reasonably livable for the occupants accommodated therein. The amount of taxes and overhead expenses, including debt service, that's a consideration for the landlord. Whether the accommodations are in compliance with the ordinances of the municipality and the general statutes relating to health and safety. The income of the petitioner and the availability of accommodations. The availability of utilities. Damages done to the premises by the tenant caused by other than ordinary wear and tear. The amount and frequency of increases in rental charges, whether and to the extent to which income from an increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested into improvements into the accommodations. So there's a large variety of considerations you have to do to look into this. So you'll gradually become familiar with this over the course of time in East Lyme. And you can do an order for limitation on an amount of rent, and suspension of rent payments, and cease and desist orders if there are retaliatory actions. I don't know if we have to go through the exact language in every single statute. Will be here for a while, but you can familiarize yourself with that. And any person aggrieved by any order of the commission may appeal to the Superior Court in New London in our case. And that will be considered privileged among all the cases in New London. And anybody who violates an order of this commission, let's see, shall be fined. This commission can request that its attorneys go to the court and ask for a fine. And that any retaliatory action by any landlord as a result of a order being presented against the landlord is prohibited, and that action can be the subject of a lawsuit against the landlord. And there's a prohibition on eviction of tenants by the landlord, except for good cause, once someone has been the subject of one of these actions that the tenant has taken. That's where you get your pen out, because a lot of these pages are notes pertaining to older versions of statutes. So you got to find your highlighting pen. Now, there's a chart here put together by Stacy. That's a pretty good chart. On day one, you get your notice of complaint. It's provided to the landlord. And there's a 15-day pause, so that hopefully some people can resolve that matter during that 15-day pause. And then, if not, and there's an escrow payment being made into the town's escrow system created specifically for this. And there's a public hearing that takes place. And the commission has to issue a decision within 10 days of the public hearing. And the landlord or tenant, or both, must comply. And if there's no compliance, an appeal is taken. Meanwhile, the escrow is held, and it's held at interest during that time. So you can follow those arrows. And the next are the forms that I gotta tell you, we've cheated and we found these forms from the town of Groton. So we sort of didn't have to do these from scratch. You can see that whoever is complaining, other than on top with this, which is a part of the administration of it, with the name and address of the landlord and the tenant. We described the problem, the amount of the rent paid now, how much is the rent increase going to be, is the rent paid up to date, is there a written lease, the length of residence, the last rent increase, has there been any other rent increases, how much, how frequent, how many apartments are there, kitchen, bathroom, the type of units in the place, the stage 1 of 2, any of these rooms shared with other units, and the type of utilities and furnishings supplied to the place that is being rented, and when it was received. And there's dates, of course, that are very important, because the dates are when it's timed. The next document is the notice of the complaint, which is given to the landlord. And it tells the landlord that the complaint has been filed, and that the time within which to resolve this complaint is starting to run. And then there's the next thing is a notice to the tenant. And the time for a period of resolution has passed. This assumes that they have not been able to work out their differences. And the tenant has been told that to go forward, the tenant has to provide a check in the escrow, to the escrow, which represents the difference between the rent which was previously paid, which was agreed, and the rent which is being demanded, which is not agreed. So, for example, the rent was just previously $750, and the rent which is being demanded is $1,000. That $250 difference has to go into escrow. And the town, by that time, we will have to set up an escrow account, which we will be doing, which our staff member will be administering. And that starts to determine the escrow period. And then the next page is a notice of the public hearing. And that it's an in-person public hearing. As you see, the form says day of week, month, year, day of year, etc. And if you need special accommodations, we will supply them. We strongly encourage them to resolve their issues before the public hearing. if you do not show up, we consider to have waived your rights. You have a right to attorney, et cetera, et cetera. So I went to a contested hearing representing a Fair Rent Commission, and it turned out that the tenant looked on the bulletin board of a large apartment unit and said, "Oh boy, the notice of rent increases." And she said, "Oh my goodness, this is too much for me. I'm going to file a notice with the Fair Rent Commission," and she did. And she went to the hearing, and it turned out that's the first time she ever talked to a representative of the landlord at the hearing, and it turned out she was looking at the wrong column, and that's at the first time she found out that the rent increase was much less than what she thought it was. She didn't take advantage of any of the previous times to deal with the landlord one-on-one until she got to the hearing. So it's good to try to encourage the landlords and the tenants to deal with each other. And sure enough, right at the hearing, they resolved all their differences because the tenant was looking at the wrong place on the chart. So sometimes it works that way. But anyway, they resolved that. But they have the hearing, and the tenant puts on their evidence, or the landlord puts on his or her evidence, whichever one is making their case to the Fair Rent Commission. And the Fair Rent Commission can decide the case right then, that night or evening. Usually Fair Rent Commissions hold their hearings a little bit earlier than normal because many times the people who appear before the Fair Rent Commission are not young, so they accommodate them that way. Or they can say, "Thank you very much. We've heard all the evidence. We're going to consider the case at our next meeting or special meeting," and then they come back for a special meeting. The meetings to decide the issue are public. There's no executive session. You can't go into executive session to decide the case. It's not like a jury goes into a jury room to decide the case. The deliberations are public. So that's the way it works. Let's see, we're up to notice of public hearing. You give the notice, you tell them that they have a right to call their witnesses, and they can have a right to attorney and call their case. And then there's a page that's basically a summary for, if you want to make a summary of the case in the attached exhibits, the next page, for the members of the commission to keep track of what's been submitted and what's been said, just so each can keep track of what's going on. The next one is the notice of the finding, and that's to the parties. They've made down on the bottom, after consideration of all the testimony and evidence presented, the Fair Rent Commissioners voted that. I guess we have to turn the page. Wow. The vote count is going to be a majority. Such order is going to be effective for 1 year. And there's some relevant stuff. And the commission has effectively closed it. And please don't retaliate. It doesn't give much room for what actually happened, so we have to fill that in somewhere. Maybe we have to adjust this form a little, leave a little space for what exactly happened. But this will, this is a preliminary form. We maybe have to leave some space for putting in exactly what happened, whether it was granted or denied or what happened. So doesn't leave much space there, but that's what the copy from Groton. And then there's a notice of a retaliation hearing, probably pretty much the same as the other hearings. And it says, the second page, that please be advised that the general statutes and the East Lyme ordinances establishing a fair rent commission prohibit people from retaliating because they filed a fair rent complaint. So that's a retaliation hearing. And then there's a cease and desist order, that if there's a necessary to do that. So that's a package of orders. So we have the statutes, the ordinances, and the correspondence that we want to look over at your leisure and see if there's anything that you want to incorporate from the ordinances into the forms, the statutes into the forms, to make them more attributable to East Lyme, although these are pretty standard forms throughout the state. But we have to be ready once we're established, because there might be somebody walking in tomorrow with a complaint. This is the first night. You're now in essence, and there might be a complaint filed tomorrow. Are we going to charge anybody for filing a complaint? I don't think so. So we don't need to have an account, but we do have to set up that escrow account for the difference between the higher and the lower rent amount. So that's a general overview. I got a call from someone who normally represents tenants throughout the state, a very experienced lawyer named Raphael Podolowski. And he said that someone gave him a call saying that there was some website attributable to the town of East Lyme Fair Rent Commission, which reversed a lot of what we just said today. And I don't know if we have a website up, do we?
So there is a page on the East Lyme.
And if we do, we're going to check that and make sure we have it right. Because
It is. What he suggested has already been changed.
The changes that he wanted were being made, is what Stacy's telling you.
oh, who wanted that? Raphael?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You also have to go over the freedom of information.
Oh yeah, freedom of information. If any of you have been on Freedom of Information commissions, you're familiar with this. The Freedom of Information Act requires that any discussion of information of subject matter attributable to this commission, among or between the members, should be in public. So you can't be discussing something about Joe Jones's application if you see each other in the grocery store or at the gasoline station. You have to talk about that in public here. The same thing if you can't be talking on social media about Joe Jones's application on social media. It has to be in public, and it has to be noticed. The Freedom of Information Act requires that any notice of any meeting be preceded by a notice, written notice, and posted on the boards within 2 days prior to the meeting on an agenda. So the agenda would say Joe Jones's application you had to have 2 days notice to talk about it. If it's not on the agenda, you can't talk about it. You have to ask the chair to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Now, the chair and the staff will keep track of the days when somebody's hearing has to be held to make sure we don't violate any of the statutes pertaining to timing. So we'll keep track of that. Sometimes it's really a really powerful incentive to talk about the Joe Jones case when you see somebody else there, but you really can't. You can't have to do that. So I think you're pretty much, by this time, most people are familiar with the Freedom of Information Act. The Freedom of Information Act really just says the commission members have to talk about the business of the commission in public. As long as you remember that, the business of the commission has to be talked about in public in the town hall. It's pretty easy to remember that part. And the public can remember that the public should not be asking the commission members about what happened except at a public meeting. And that way, if the public cooperates, it works pretty well. And you can remember that, I think. You're pretty adept at that. There's sometimes the tricky question which rise, but that's the general rule.
I might also add that on the town's website, Jim Blair from the Freedom of Information Commission gave a public presentation to everyone in town hall, and that video is both posted on the town's website. It's very easy to find, and it goes over all the requirements for the Freedom of Information Act. And we urge every Board of Commission member in town to look at that. And if you have questions, I'm sure you can call Ms. Anderson, and she can help you find it on the website. But it is quite prominent on the website, and it's on YouTube as well.
That's why she's a town attorney. That's all I have on the presentation by the town attorney.
Anybody have any comments?
Questions?
I do have a question really quick. So if there were complaints that were already,
I'm sorry. Go
sorry,
on.
no, if there were complaints that were already filed with what the town has given them, now that we have the official forms, do the tenants need to resubmit their complaints on official forms?
I'm sorry. Could
want
you
me to-
repeat your
yeah,
question?
Sure. So there's tenants that have already filed a complaint for a fair rent commission.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. They use the form that was temporarily given to them. But now that we have an official form, do the tenants need to resubmit their complaint on the official document?
I would say, have you been receiving? Okay, so I think now that you have a commission, we have forms set up. People need to come to town hall and file an official complaint, and so that we start the time period fresh with each one.
Okay.
There's going to be a bit of a backlog, since I'm assuming that because this commission is newly formed and these forms are new, that there will be some delay in this time period, but we can work that out as we work the kinks out. But yes, my advice is anyone who wants to file a complaint with the commission should come to town hall and ask Stacy Konakowicz to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Can I just ask to be clear on something? We don't have a form yet, right? So we're not down tomorrow. These forms have to be approved at the next meeting, or are these forms going to be used for using everything?
I would say that these are our forms.
So we can start accepting.
Yes, I don't think there's anything that the commission would need to do to make any changes to them, but certainly these are the forms that we have and that are in the town hall, and those are what should be given to people. If they need to get revised as time goes on, that's fine too, but people probably want to get this process going, the tenants and the landlords perhaps.
They can come, I have a few, I've collected a few.
Okay.
So those people can come back and see me, but do you want them to come see you or me? We should make that clear to everybody.
Either way,
You can come see me.
okay.
Will you
And you can
contact
have-
the people that have already dropped the forms off? Yes, I'll have them come get their packages.
Okay.
Where did the
Are
people
you
get the
satisfied with
forms?
those
They got
forms?
them from the internet. They were not given by the town. They're not official.
It was a generic form from the state,
Yeah.
because the state does require a fair rent commission in municipalities over 25,000 people. So the state has a formatted, like a lot of stuff's already been formatted because they're requiring it by law. So this complaint form is a generic form from the state that we use because there were people that were in immediate need
I
of filling
see.
out forms.
Okay.
So
And do you know how many of those there are that are pending?
I don't, but there's probably at least 5 or 6.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe the thing to do is, we should look at those. If they're not that different from the town's forms, we hate to make people start all over, but since the commission is really just formed tonight, we have to be careful about the timeline here.
This is the first night.
So this is the first night. So I would say the people who have already filed their forms, really, we're starting anew. This is a brand-new commission. The commission needs their timelines. So no, people who have already filled out forms need to come back in and do new forms.
Okay.
And we're starting from scratch
Yeah.
with this fresh commission.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm one of those people that put in the form in, one of the first ones,
Yes,
okay, and I use the form.
yes.
Put them in the bulletin file until we get set up. When we have to fill out this new form, I'm gonna be out of town. I'm leaving for the holidays. I won't be back until late April. So, right now, I'm 75 years old. And under
Okay.
State statute, I'm protected.
Okay.
Because of my age, okay?
Okay,
So I'm trying to say, if I'm not here, if I get this back, or if they try to contact me and I'm out of town, I can't be filling out a new form at that time. Now, right now, we're following some of the state statutes of how much you should pay. I'm paying rent, constantly paying every month,
okay.
but I decided.
You mean the new amount?
No, not the new amount.
No.
The amount that I've been paying, because my lease that they sent to us was invalid, it was incorrect. It had to be, and they at that time, they gave us a 10-day window that we had to accept or not accept.
I
And
see.
there was errors on my lease. So I called, I said, you have to make these corrections. And they said, okay, we'll get it to you before, and they said, if you don't accept it by 10 days, then it's going back to the original. They cut my lease from 1900 to 1600, thinking that I would take it, but because of the way things were set up, and it was, the lease was incorrect. Basically, they would send me a new lease within that 10 days. I had a 10-day window to accept or not accept. Okay? So they never sent me my lease back with the corrections. They just ignored it. And at the last day, the 10th day, I sent a letter to them complaining that I'm not going to accept what they have. So right now, I'm still paying my old lease, and they're accepting my payments, but now in their ledger, I can see things that I paid and I didn't pay, but I paid every month. And they're coming back and trying to make me pay $1,600 instead of the $1,000 I've been paying, because it had not been settled. So my
But
question
sir, the problem in your case would be, under the statute, we don't even have the escrow. The escrow account has just been opened. So under the state statute, you're going to have to pay into the escrow account the difference between your current rent and what your landlord has increased it to.
I would ask, I don't think we need an answer right now, because I think this needs to be looked into. From my understanding of the research and conversations with their lawyer is that if what's happening is the rent's going from $1,000 to $1,900. That's $900.
I can't afford that.
The reason people are coming to the Fair Rent Commission is because they can't afford that extra $900. So to ask them to pay that $1,000 to the landlord and then $900 to the escrow account is still a problem.
Right.
And so I believe that it's incorrect, so I'm just,
No, this is
into
good.
it.
This is why we're here.
Yeah, good. So I'd ask you to look into that and confirm.
Okay,
My understanding
okay.
is that once the tenant fills out the Fair Rent Commission form, they continue to pay their existing rent
Mm-hmm.
until the Fair Rent Commission has seen the case.
Okay.
Right.
And, so that's, I would have you look into to confirm that.
Okay.
The other comment I'd like to make is that, once the ordinance was passed, that was considered a town ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people whose leases were up at the end of September. The ordinance was passed September 1, August 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And there are individuals who filled out the Fair Rent Commission complaint form immediately,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that if they didn't, they were going to be, they could be, you know, they, trying to think of the right words, I'm sorry.
They could be charged for that amount.
They would have to immediately start paying that new rent that they couldn't afford. So I don't know, I understand the commission starting new today.
Right.
But the ordinance has been enacted and been in place
Since
since
September.
whatever that date was of September 1st or August 31st. So if someone has filled out a form like this gentleman, sorry, it's not considered a new form of a new form. It's not a new case. It's already there. So he should be protected from when he handed in his form. And again, I don't need immediate answers, but something.
Yeah, and I understand the predicament of the people in that situation.
Yeah.
And we'll have to make a legal opinion on that, because without a commission, I don't see how we can provide any relief or how the time clock can start to run.
Yeah, so I mean, this
But
is-
we will look into
Yeah,
that.
because it's not the first town that's been through this, so I'm not looking for any answer. It's just something I want you to
Right,
look
right.
into.
And we will
Yeah.
issue an opinion on that. That's a good question.
I think someone had a comment, sir. I think you had a comment. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, this is I'm an alternate member on the commission. Just a question regarding statutes that already exist. For example, in the assessor's world, there are two forms that for example, the income and expense statement that has to be provided annually to the assessor's office for purpose of taxing the property is covered under FOI, so it's not a public document.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with somebody filing for the senior programs, their income is not a public information. On our form, we're asking for the rents, we're also asking for their income. Is any part of that public form as presented so far subject to FOI?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, the answer would have to be no. It's no one's business what someone's income is. And that's information that will be protected, and we'll figure out a way to do that.
Thank you. Just wondered.
Yeah.
You had a good point about the escrow. If the person is supposed to put money in escrow if there's an increase in their rent until it's resolved. Well, the whole issue is if they can't afford that escrow, that increased rent, how can they afford to put it in escrow?
Right.
That's why we're arguing about this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a valid,
And that is certainly a valid concern, because, the goal is not to put people on the streets because they can't afford to eat while they're putting this amount in escrow.
right, so I mean, how do we solve that problem?
I think that's probably not your problem to solve. That's our problem to solve, and give you a written legal opinion on that.
Okay,
I'm certain of that.
okay. Will we be dealing directly with you on issues? Okay.
And I'm going to send a link for the Freedom of Information presentation to all of you so that you can have that readily available. And then certainly anything that you need from me, I can facilitate.
I'd like to thank council for the presentation tonight and the staff for putting this together. I think we're doing a great service for the residents of East Lyme. And if there's disinformation out there, we should dispel the misconception that, we're here to handcuff landlords or to rule against tenants. So the whole point is to bring fairness to this town and its residents, and make sure everybody gets a fair shake.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, how, when you do look into what needs to happen with the forms,
Mm-hmm.
how will that information be provided so that we can inform tenants who have filled out forms already?
That's also a really good question. It seems there has to be some fairness to this process because there's only so many hearings that the commission's going to be able to conduct at any one time. And, since the our forms are not available and the commission has just been formed, are we going to create a waiting list for people? Is it the people who went off and got their own forms? I mean, there has to be some amount of fairness to that, but has the town been accepting these forms? This is all news to us.
They have been.
We were told in the beginning to accept any applications that came in to be held and dated, just that they wanted to. So these were no forms. I think they were probably handed out by Beth Sibilia. So I have 1, 2, 3, 6 here.
Okay.
Forms that I've collected that would need to go back to the people now with the correct form.
Okay, so I see. So Beth Sibilia, I understand, gave a presentation at the community center.
Yeah,
She-
so
So
that
these
is
are fair housing attorneys.
Okay, and then,
at the end of October.
okay, so at that point, people got the forms from them and started submitting them to the town?
September, yes.
But people are in this predicament because if their rent was going to rise October 1, they wanted to get it in before that.
So they were told, and I didn't know otherwise.
Yeah.
That even though our commission was not yet put together, the ordinance was in place, and so that this would somehow be a record that they were on top of it and wanting to get their application in as soon as the process could.
Right, and my concern is that then the statutory deadlines have already passed.
Right, so I that's why they need to go back and then resubmit it. That's what I told them.
I think I need to look at them tomorrow and see what they are and if they're similar enough to the ones that we've just handed out tonight, that we should just keep these people in line rather than put them at the end of the line, because everyone in good faith has
Keep
had.
them in mind no matter what. Give them back, have them fill it out, and then they come back and they'll be first.
And there may be a chance that some of those complaints have already been resolved.
They haven't.
Possible.
They haven't.
Yeah, so we will have to deal with that, but certainly we don't want these people to somehow lose out because of this
I think
situation.
with the nature of us talking about it, that won't happen, right? Because we know we have.
We
this
know that
list
we
right
have them.
now.
Yes,
So we know these people have already. I
yes,
have them documented,
yeah.
and when they.
My other concern, though, is that the people who maybe didn't attend that meeting, but have been waiting for this meeting and for a commission and for the town to get going, are going to say, well, wait a minute, had I known, I would have gotten those forms. And we're just going to have to make a judgment call on that, and we will do that.
I believe that there's the people that have already filed, excuse me, those were the most immediate situations. Others that are waiting to maybe put in complaint, their leases have not come up yet, fortunately. So the ones that are on record, those are the ones that were dire situations, most immediate.
Okay. All right.
To my knowledge.
My lease ran out.
Yeah.
Right, and so,
I have the lease as I sit here.
yeah.
I'm paying exactly, I call and say, saying, continue to pay your lease, fair rent commission and all that. Keep paying what you paid, or if you want to pay a little more, it was my decision. And because there was no decision made, and they did not come back and said, talk to me.
Right.
And made me a counter offer or an offer. that I live with.
Right.
I'm being protected by, the age group, and they can't evict me.
Okay.
Okay, so what I've been paying, they got a record of me paying.
Okay.
I can see it on their website.
Yeah, so we certainly don't want people to lose out because it took, this whole ordinance really went like a rocket. We all saw how it went. I mean, this has never happened before where we passed an ordinance like really right under the gun. So I think we're just going to have to make accommodations for the people who have already filed applications so that they don't lose out.
Okay, and I go back and I say, I'm leaving town in the next 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to fill that form all over again, restructure, and get it back in within the next, I'm leaving on the 18th of flying out of here. I won't be back, I'll be till after the first of the year. So
Okay.
now if I can't get to fill that form out between now and when I come back, am I still protected? Or is that starting to start?
I think I'm going to make a judgment call right now that the people who were in dire circumstances and already got their applications in, that you will be protected under our ordinance and the statute. And then from now on, and so have you taken those in order, Ms. Anderson? Okay, so we know what order they came in on, and the next time the commission meets, we'll take up those. And but from here on in, the new people will use our forms. I think it's the only way that we can operate.
Could I comment?
Sure.
No,
You're the boss.
No, I'm not. I'm just, I just have a suggestion. So my thought was for the forms, or the files that have already been filed, we can track the date that they were filed, correct? We know the date. And so I think we should, if they're similar enough to our form, I think if we could attach a case number to each one in sequence, and then we'll put a note that we're going to relate it back to the date that they actually filed it, and then we will use the date that we actually create the case number as the date for notice provisions under the ordinance. Does that sound like a reasonable solution? And this way we have a relation back date, and in federal court they do that. They'll relate something back to a former date, and then you move forward. So I think if we try that approach, it may get us through this learning curve. And then as we move forward, we can do it the way we're supposed to do it. But we'll try to accommodate those first files. So maybe, and there's only 6 of them, so maybe we can do it that way. Just a suggestion if that's acceptable to council and the board.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I think the commission can take that up first at your next meeting. Okay.
Because of my situation and this situation, am I gonna, the next meeting is gonna be when, approximately, the next meeting?
It's going to be in January, the end of January.
Sometime in
29th.
I'll be back by that time too.
Maybe give us a call tomorrow so we can
I can
work on yours.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that I'll be back.
The last Wednesday, the 29th of January.
Okay, we're good at that then.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Sure.
When we list the complaints in sequence, are we regarding that as receipt of the complaint, and then the town will be issuing within 3 days the notice of the complaint to the landlord way before we meet on January 29th? We're going to get that process started like almost immediately.
Yes. But I think that shouldn't be until tomorrow, since that's the first business day after the commission has been formed, so that the 3 days would not begin to run until tomorrow. Is that all right with you, Stacy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, I have received the forms from Beth and filled them out. Can they be submitted here tonight?
tomorrow would be better.
My issue is I don't have transportation.
Okay. Can you scan it and send it to Ms. Anderson and Ms. Konakowicz in the morning?
I don't have the ability to do that for my own.
Okay,
I
so.
had to go to the library to make copies of it.
Okay. Well, why don't we, maybe you could leave copies tonight and you
Okay.
could stamp them in tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want the originals or the copies I made?
Either is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You mentioned statute a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize if that was already discussed, that we could skip over that. What's the is it the statute?
It's the fair rent, Connecticut's fair rent statutes. So there was a packet tonight
Okay,
where
I'll
the
grab it.
statutes, okay.
Thank you.
So after this meeting tonight, our next meeting will be with just the commission, or is it going to also be another public meeting like tonight? Is it going to be more of a training for us? Just a question.
No, your next meeting, you will start to have hearings on
Okay.
these applications before you.
Okay.
And I'm sure in the meantime, the chairman and deputy chairman will be in touch with us. And I think probably for those first ones, that I should be present.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll have questions.
Insofar as an agenda, at the other meetings for the town, there's a public discussion period at the beginning.
Yes.
Would that be appropriate for this commission?
A public delegations?
Yes, exactly, thank you.
I think that is going to be up to the commission.
Okay.
I don't see, honestly, how it could be productive. And in fact, if you're going to be having hearings, no one can stand up and say anything that will sway the commission.
Right.
So I would think not. This is not the place for public delegations.
Okay, and a follow on that, because pertinent information. If the filer of the report is present, is there an opportunity to give that person a chance to speak on their own behalf and/or the landlord on his or her behalf?
Yes, it's a public hearing. So the tenant would stand up and present to you his or her case, and the landlord would stand up and present his or her case. But it's a very formal process. Yeah,
I
you would have
totally-
to swear them in.
Right.
Yeah, so there's no public delegations where they can stand up and plead their case. It's like a mini trial
Yep,
with all the formality of a trial.
right.
And so you can ask questions, you would be expected to ask questions of both the landlord and the tenant, and anyone testifying would be under oath.
Right. And my point to summarize is that the chairman is going to run the meeting
Correct.
under Robert's Rules of Orders. And people who want to discuss and make comments can't do that until that window is open for them to do it.
Well, no one else, Joe Jones, who lives on the north end of town, shouldn't be allowed
right.
to stand up and weigh in on Susie Smith, who lives in Niantic's application. These are hearings that really are for you to decide
Right.
under state statute whether or not to act.
Mm-hmm.
And other people's opinions on that shouldn't factor in to your decisions.
Right.
Your role is to accept these applications and to hear each side's case and then make a decision under the statute, deliberate among yourselves publicly, and then make a decision. So whatever anyone else who wants to weigh in is of no moment. If Susie Smith, who's the applicant, wants to have a witness who he or she thinks will help the cause, for instance, on all those factors under the statute, aren't the halls dirty or whatever it is, that is permissible, but not someone else's opinion. That's not your job.
Okay.
You can have, if you want, you can have a representative speak for you if you're
Yes. Someone may come with an attorney.
That's what I'm saying, you know.
Yes.
If you're going against a corporation or something like that, they would probably have you. So you're at a kind of disadvantage, you only know what you want to tell them, and you can use all the factors of the state against you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
It's
a heavier side.
right.
You got someone's
Yeah.
alongside you.
And I think the commission, you know, we have to trust their judgment.
Oh, well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we put them together.
Yes.
And you got a good
Yes.
judgment there.
Yes. Does anyone have any other questions that they want me to answer? Yes.
So I'm Jason Diebel, I'll be the ex officio member for the Board of Selectmen, so I'll be here all the time. But my question is about alternates.
Yes.
Since there is not a full seated commission, there's one member who has not been appointed because they haven't come forward from the public yet.
Mm-hmm.
Will you conduct business with the current configuration, or will there be a constant churn of alternates going on?
I'm sorry, Mr. Debo, I don't really understand your question.
There are 5 people up there?
Yes.
There's supposed to be 6,
Yes.
but one of them doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
They haven't been appointed because they haven't come forward from the public.
Yes. And maybe I could hear from the first selectman or you, Ms. Anderson. What's going on with the hunt for the second alternate?
That's an alternate position, so there's one alternate that we need.
Yeah.
We need a landlord alternate, but all 5 members are full members, and it's a full, this is a full commission.
Good. Okay.
At least we won't need any tiebreakers if we have 5.
No, what a relief. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank
you
you.
for your service.
Thank you.
I make a
I'll
motion-
thank everybody for coming tonight.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I second the motion.
Third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.